welcome to the Infinite Human Talk Show. I'm so glad you've joined us. And we have a really exciting show for you today. And we also, this is the first show of the whole series. We have an exciting guest who's sitting beside me, and we'll hear from her in just a minute. She's Summer Overbach from the Rainbow Blossom Health Store. But first I'd like to tell you a little bit about what you can expect from our series, which covers physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing and expansion. So each week we will have different topics. We are starting with nutrition, since that's really the most important foundation for the feeding the cells of your body properly, and being able to really decide and choose what is the best diet for you. And then we'll also talk to alternative healers, naturopaths, and other people who can offer you other things that complement your physical wellness, which we never want you to ignore what your doctors tell you, but this will complement that. And then we'll move on to a tribute to Edgar Cayce, since he is actually from Louisville, Kentucky himself. And we'll talk to psychics and shamans and people about crystal powers and learning how to trust your own inner guidance. So we just have a really exciting series planned for you. And I'd like to begin today with just a very easy meditation to kind of correspond your right and left brain together, and to open yourself up to the information that you're going to be receiving. And of course, I just want to tell you, if you're driving in a car, you might not want to listen to this right now. You might want to listen to it later on in our archives or on YouTube. But we are broadcasting live, so just give it about 5 minutes. So I'd like you to just inhale deeply and close your eyes and take a deep breath in and exhale and relax. And one more time, inhale deeply and relax. And just take a moment to tighten your feet and your toes. And inhale and exhale and let them relax. And now bring the tension up to your calves and tighten them all the way up to your thighs. And so have your whole legs tightened up. Inhale and exhale and relax. And one more time, inhale deeply and tighten all the way from your feet up your legs to your buttocks and stomach. Tense them up, tight, 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 and relax. And one more time, bring that tension all the way up into your spine and up to your shoulders and your arms and forearms and your face, and tense it up all the way up to the top of your scalp and relax. And now I want you to go deeply, counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and feel your entire body relaxing and allowing healing energy to enter into it. And now feel every cell of your body opening, opening, opening to receive this healing, loving, nurturing energy that is rushing through every bone, every fiber, every cell of your body to heal you, to transmute you, and to bring you into wholeness and aliveness. And now take a deep breath, opening your eyes and coming back to awareness, and welcome again. And I am so happy to present to you our guest for today, the owner and operator of Rainbow Blossom, Summer. Hello, Summer.
Hi, I'm so relaxed now.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for coming. We're really excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Our first guest. I'm so excited to start with this because I think nutrition is the basis of the whole evolution process. And like I said, this whole series is about physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wholeness. And I think your diet includes all those aspects. I think a lot of times people don't feed the other natures, and so they end up just feeding themselves physically. So they end up getting very, very big in the physical area, but they don't nurture themselves, say, spiritually or emotionally or mentally. And then I think a lot of times we end up going to the traditional medicine and we come out with diagnosis of cancer or high cholesterol or glaucoma or diabetes, and we're not sure what to do with that. And like I said before, we're never saying not to listen to your medical practitioner, but there are things you can add on to that and change, of course. So could you tell us a little bit about what you, when people walk into the health food stores, I know sometimes myself when I first started going in, you get so confused because there's so much in there. What should you buy? What brands? They all look different. What supplements, So can you tell us a little bit about what you suggest?
Sure. Well, it really depends on what you're going for. We sell so many things in the store, from natural foods to supplements to body care, and I personally recommend all of it. I think that it's important to have a natural approach to your lifestyle and to really be more mindful about what you're putting into your body as well as on your body. So making sure that the foods that you're eating are as simple and as unprocessed as possible, that they're not genetically modified, that they weren't sprayed with pesticides, fungicides, and other chemicals and processing agents.
Okay, now you have to excuse me because I've been living in Italy for the past 10 years and we don't have that much of a problem there yet, and simple diets, non-processed foods exist, and the farmers don't usually do that yet. But what is this whole thing about GMO? What is this genetically altered food, that's been...
Sure. Well, GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, and they're basically plants that have been bred to be, super breeds that are pesticide resistant. So they have the pesticides actually inside the seed, and they don't reproduce in the same way that you would normally be able to save seeds. So the patents are owned by chemical companies. Monsanto is a big one. And so 90% of the corn and canola that is grown in the United States is genetically modified. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Almost all canola is genetically modified. Soybeans is another big one that's genetically modified, corn, wheat, and they're actually even doing sugar beets now. So a lot of times when you see sugar, you don't know if it has been genetically modified or not if it doesn't specify that it's cane sugar. So there's a lot of genetically modified foods that are out there. If you start reading labels, you'll find something simple like ketchup has high fructose corn syrup in it, or even bread. Lots of products have derivatives of these genetically modified plants, so you really have to be careful about what you're putting in your body, because if you don't know better, most of the foods that are available in a normal supermarket are going to contain GMO ingredients. And you may be asking why that's a bad thing. And it's
what happens to your body when you eat GMO products?
You know, the biggest thing about GMOs is that we don't know what the risks are. We do know that you know, if an insect starts to eat a genetically modified food, that it's going to, you know, die. We know that organic food has been, you know, not sprayed and not treated. But, you know, one of the biggest things is that it's a science experiment that we can't take back because it's outside and it's in nature, and because of the way the pollination works, you know, the crosswinds are going to carry these, you know, GMO pollens, you know, throughout the world, and so we're, you know, once it's out there, it's really hard to take back. So that's part of the concern. I mean, it hasn't really been studied to show.
It also lack some of the nutrients? I mean, people aren't getting, you know, all their nutrients. That apple's supposed to have this, and a corn supposed to have that, and squash is supposed to have that. It wasn't, God didn't make it that way. It's,
you know, well, some dietitians would tell you that there's no that there's not a greater nutritional value in organic versus not. But there are many institutes that have done research on organic foods, and they have found consistently that organic foods have a higher nutritional profile than their non-organic counterparts. Just last year I participated in a fellowship, and we did a blind taste test between an organic apple and a non-organic apple, and so they, you know, asked, you know, the room which one tastes better. We had no idea which one it was, and everyone unanimously chose the organic apple over the non-organic apple. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why, but mostly because the food that is bred to look beautiful is not always, you know, what is going.
It's like plastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's grown to have a long shelf life, to be able to, you know, stay fresh and look a certain way, so that it gets, you know, that way in the supermarket, but it's not necessarily bred for flavor. So,
well, you're very kind. You're being very kind to this process. I know when I live in Italy, and all my friends, all the Americans that come over there, they sit there and they eat a salad. I mean, it could be the worst salad to Italians, and they go, "Oh my God, this tastes so great! It has, you know, the lettuce, I can taste it, and the fruit, I can taste it," and they just think everything tastes so good. And then they ask me, when the American tourists come to town in Florence, why is it they're so big? You know, because they take up most of the sidewalks, you know, usually. They don't understand it. And I tell them that they're starving to death. You know, they're trying to eat more and more and more because they're not really getting nutritionally fulfilled. And Italians, they might eat a lot of, you know, like first, second, and you know, pasta and all that, and you think they'd be heavy, but they're very, very thin people. You know, the Europeans are very thin, and they're eating, you know, whole foods. There's no preservatives in their foods. Their supermarkets are small. Their refrigerators are small because you just buy something for that day. You buy bread for that day and you throw it away. It has no preservatives in it, you know. And I think that makes a big difference.
Well, Slow Food was actually started in Italy, and Slow Food is an international organization, and there actually is a Louisville chapter. It's called Slow Food Bluegrass, and it's an organization that promotes good, clean, fair food. But it's a movement that was started in Italy because they were starting to notice that a lot of the heritage, you know, breeds of animals, as well as the heirloom plants and seeds were not continuing, and so they really wanted to celebrate kind of the life and uniqueness of the food that has been, you know, consumed for years, and not just focus on, you know, those products that are gonna, you know, look as pretty or travel as well. So it's all about kind of getting good quality food and making people aware of it. And so that's something that started in Italy and has, you know, traveled all over the world, and has even, you know, made it to Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, we'll have to get them on. Italians are very serious about their food too, let me say. Let's just pause 1 minute for a commercial break, if that's all right.
Warehouse, located at 5800 Fern Valley Road. We have 12,000 square feet of space to cater to your wildest party requests. Our large dance floor features 2 cages with a stellar light show to match. Along with our DJ booth and state-of-the-art sound system, we can keep the party going all night. We also have 2 VIP areas to accommodate your rock star lifestyle. Want to feature a band or other musical act at your party? Then our amazing stage at the Warehouse will more than please you and your friends. Want to rent our space? Contact our office at 502-964-7040 or find us on Facebook. The Warehouse, Louisville.
Welcome back. And if you just tuned in now, I'm with Summer Oberbach of Rainbow Health Foods. Actually, she's the owner, and we talked about genetically altered foods and organic foods and all the things they have in the store. But the one thing I actually didn't ask you, and I'm most curious about, is how did you start it? I mean, you started this store, your parents, back in the 70s.
Sure.
Pumpkin, your mother.
Yes.
Summer and Pumpkin. And, you know, that was a very, I guess, I wouldn't say radical, but, you know, innovative thing to do. It was
Sure, yeah.
Pioneering.
Well, if you can't tell by the name Pumpkin, my parents were hippies. And they had been traveling around and living in other places that had been like a little bit more progressive in terms of diet and lifestyle. So they lived in Denver and San Francisco and different places, and so they were seeing what was happening with the natural foods movement, and they, you know, really dreamed of having something like that in Louisville, and so they wanted to start a business. So they came back to Louisville, and they decided to start a natural food store. And so at the time, they had a natural food store and a cafe, and it was really more kind of like a cafeteria, kind of a restaurant. So they served lots of homemade, you know, food, and then they had a little grocery store in there that sold a lot of the ingredients that they used in the restaurant.
Where was the first one?
It was on Breckenridge Lane.
Okay.
In St. Matthews.
It's where
it is where Bicycle Sport is now.
Oh, okay.
So they decided that they wanted to open the store and the restaurant, and my dad always likes to say that they were 10 years too early for Louisville, and that, you know, people would come in and, you know, they'd be giggling and they'd say, "We're looking for a gag gift." You know, people didn't really understand the health food movement, but, you know, as they were around, people became more familiar with it.
Yeah.
And Rainbow Blossom really was able to make it those first 10 years because they had this restaurant and they got into the catering business.
Wow.
And so there was a rock and roll band that was coming through town, and they were vegetarian, and the promoter didn't know what to do. And so this was back in the days when, you know, eating vegetarian was a ham sandwich without the ham.
Yeah.
So, so the promoter called and said, "Can you cater, you know, this concert?" And so they said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So they, you know, ended up making all this, you know, fresh baked bread and, you know, salads and quiche and, you know, just all kinds of stuff. And the band raved, and they said, "We've been on tour for months, and this is the best food we've had since we left." And so the promoter called back and said, "You know, you're hired for all the concerts." And so Rainbow Blossom actually catered all of the rock and roll bands that came through town in the late 70s and early 80s. So, you know, they catered the Rolling Stones and Liza Minnelli and Bonnie Raitt and Elvis Costello. So, so that's kind of actually, so it was actually those, you know, rock and roll shows that actually kind of helped us, you know, make it in the years when we were maybe a little too early. And then people started catching on to it, and, you know, business kind of slowly grew. And, you know, fast forward, you know, several years. So I'm not even 37 years old. So my parents started it before I was born. Wow. And then they, once, you know, we were starting to get a little bit older, they wanted to get out of the catering business and just focused on the stores. And so the stores is really where I grew up. I lived on a farm, but the stores were kind of like my babysitter or my daycare after school. And so I would help customers and learn about the products and kind of, you know, learn, you know, make my way through the store. And so I moved off to college, and I came back. I had gone to business school, and my dad had gotten really ill. He was diagnosed with cancer. We didn't know if he was going to live, and my grandmother was also really sick. And so Whole Foods and Wild Oats, which are two national chains, had moved into town, and our sales were really down. And times were tough, and we didn't have the leadership in my dad to really pull us through. And so, my family came to me and said, we need you to step in and help us. And so I said, okay, I'll do that for, a few months and, get things going, and then I'm gonna, hit the road again. And so, a few months turned into a few years, and now it's been 10 years since I took over the business. So, and we've grown from, we had 3 stores at the time, and now we have 5 stores.
Wow.
So.
Complimente, I'll say in Italian. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so wonderful. I think one of the things that appeals most to me about your stores is that it does have a real personal, feeling about it, rather than, the big chain stores, that just focus on, money a lot. And you really do offer, and one of the reasons was why I wanted to have you as our first guest. I think you walk in there and you can feed yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and also with all the events that you offer, because you have everything from alternative healers to yoga instructors to psychics to I think I even did a transformational art program in there once. So you feed it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that's really exciting to me, to see how our events have been able to take off, and how receptive the community has been to them. And so I grew up remembering the stores as being just this gathering place. They were almost like a community center. And
yes.
I would see all of these, like holistic practitioners and different people shopping, and people, would just connect, and there was so much just light and love that happened in the stores. And so when I came back and the stores were, suffering, it just seemed like all the energy had been, sucked out of it. And so I really had to figure out a way to revitalize the stores. And so I think we had kind of, lost our way a little bit. So I started having events. And so I started calling practitioners, and, we had an event that was a alternative health fair, and we called all of the natural practitioners, we could find, and had them all come in, and we almost did like a meet and greet with our customers. And so, we said, you keep going to these normal doctors, but if you can come in here and, meet these people, then, the next time you have to, you're having a problem, then maybe you can, call this person instead. And so we kind of helped build the practitioner's business, and then they helped refer, customers back to us. And the staff just seemed, just like this burden had been like lifted off their shoulders, and they were so excited to see so much kind of movement and just, energy in the store. And so that just kind of started this whole thing where we started, seeing what kind of events we could plan. And so now, 10 years later, we have, dozens and dozens of events every month. And when I opened the newest store in 2010, we had a community room. And so we do happy hour.
That's in the Highlands?
It's at the Gardner Lane store.
I've been in that one. That's
yeah.
The nice one.
And so we do, happy hour, meditations and Tai Chi and yoga. And so, it has a separate closed off space where we can have, a little bit more privacy. We also have a practitioner room there. So we have a natural practitioner who has an office in that space. And so people can come in and, get treatments as well. So
good. Do you have a movie screen?
We have a projector, yeah.
Okay, good. I might talk to you about it.
Sure.
I made a movie, documentary in Italy, and it's called What is God? And I wanted to show it somewhere, so that sounds like a great place. Okay, good. I got that on film, everyone. You were there. Also, Carol was telling me about that you're kind of partnering up with the Wellness Center now. Is that true, or?
Well, we have our practitioners room, so we do a lot of work in collaboration with, they're called Sustainable Health Choices. And
what is it called?
Sustainable Health Choices.
Okay. And
And she does massage therapy and craniosacral therapy.
Okay, okay, good.
And Tibetan reflexology.
All right. So that's interesting.
But we have dozens and dozens of practitioners that we work with,
okay, good.
regularly.
We'd like to have, in the future, some of them on the show to talk about, that. But now let me ask you, what happens to someone who just doesn't know anything and they see their doctor and they get this diagnosis, and they want to, look at some alternative, solutions. So what do you suggest they do? I mean, just walk in your store, or what are they doing?
Well, they say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and I've always heard that, $1 of preventative health care is worth $7 of, actual health care savings. So I think that food is a great place to start. Obviously any drastic lifestyle changes, should be approved by your doctor, but eating healthy is something that every doctor is going to get behind. And so being more mindful about what you're putting in your body. We have a computer that's called aisle 7, and you can actually you can go in, it's a touch screen, it's really easy, and you can go in and put in if you're taking any prescriptions, and it will tell you what stuff might be beneficial, what supplements you might avoid, even like food items that you may consider eating. It may tell you that if you're taking, something that it might deplete your levels of a vitamin or a mineral, and you may consider, supplementing that because you're on a particular prescription. So that's a good place to start if you have a serious medical condition.
Like if you have diabetes, can they walk in there and put that they have diabetes in there?
Yes.
And then it can recommend what kind of foods they should be eating and what kind of supplements might.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. I didn't know that.
It's a great resource, and it all works on clinical trial, so it'll actually tell you, it has a star rating system to tell you how effective a certain supplement is for the condition.
Okay. Now, do you have people, live people? Because a lot of people, with the computer.
We have no people. we just have robots.
It's all computer.
Yeah, we just have robots. No, we have a great staff. They've been around, in some cases for years and years. We even have staff that have been there longer than me. So, but yeah, we have a really knowledgeable staff. They all are exposed to lots of trainings, and they give excellent customer service.
Okay.
So if you go in there with, any problem, they can help you.
Now, what do you think? There's been a lot of studies, and people are starting to. In fact, even my nieces and nephews. My niece was she walked out of the womb being a vegetarian. She just wouldn't eat meat. She didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was a vegetarian back, in the early 90s. I did it for spiritual reasons, and it was just, unless you were in California or something, it was so hard. We were traveling all around the United States, and we'd be in places like Idaho, and we'd eat baked potatoes with cheese on it. And so, what do you think about, being a vegetarian? And hasn't that changed a lot? Aren't there so many more options available now?
Sure. It's a lot easier to be anything than it used to be, because there's so many more food choices out there. And it is a lot easier to be a vegetarian. The one thing that I would caution is to make sure that you're being a healthy vegetarian.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be a vegetarian if you don't like vegetables.
Yeah.
That sounds basic, but there are potato chip and French fry, cheese pizza, vegetarians. And it's important to also make sure that you're eating a balanced diet and getting nutrition from whatever your dietary approach is. And we talked about genetically modified foods, and so soy is a big genetically modified crop. So you want to make sure that if you're going to eat soy, that you're eating organic soy that is not going to be genetically modified. There's a great program that's called the Non-GMO Project, and it's a third-party verification system where companies can send their products in for testing to show that their products are non-GMO.
Oh, wow.
So, but so for vegetarians, there's lots of great options out there, and we've actually found that for our store sales, there's we certainly have lots of vegetarian and vegan customers, but the vegetarianism actually kind of has peaked a little bit in that a lot of people are kind of embracing like a little bit more of a flexitarian lifestyle, as we call it, where they're being more conscious about the type of animal proteins that they're consuming. And I like to call them happy animals, where people don't want to eat factory farmed meat, meat that has, where the
hormones have been pumped into them.
Antibiotics and hormones, and they've lived in these little tiny cages, and, where they're being raised in CAFOs, which are cage animal feeding operations.
Okay.
So people are looking for local, grass-fed, pastured meat. And so, they might eat a predominantly vegetarian lifestyle, but they also would enjoy some good animal protein if they know that it comes from a farm where the animal lived a happy life. So
until
they
got killed.
Till their last day. But even the processing centers are smaller, and the animals are less stressed, and so a lot of them actually have humane processing facilities. So they might this sounds funny, but like kill a chicken in the dark, because the dark puts a chicken to sleep. And so then it's asleep, and then they, slit the throat. And so that sounds like a simple thing, but while it's passed out, who wouldn't rather, who wouldn't rather be like unaware that, they're
go to sleep, little chicken, go to sleep, little chicken. That's terrible.
And this show has taken a strange turn of events.
I don't know. I've been a vegetarian, not a vegetarian, and I see these things like these little piggies, or like you see a movie like Babe,
Oh, I know. It just melts your little heart.
I know, and then you see these little chickies that are so cute, but they're roosters, so they get rid of them all with like this foam that just smothers them right away. It's so efficient. I saw that on Facebook. I'm terrible on Facebook. Anyway, remember to like us on Facebook, infinitehuman.com, and also Rainbow Blossom, right? Like us on Facebook.
We just hit, this is a big milestone for us, we hit 10,000 likes on Facebook today.
All right.
That was very exciting. Thank you.
And what about tomorrow? What's the big thing tomorrow again you're going to do?
Oh, I'm going to be at the Forecastle Festival, which is a live music festival. And I am the president of LIBA, which is the Louisville Independent Business Alliance, which is an organization that promotes a buy local campaign. And we are going to have a booth at Forecastle. So I'll be there.
Stop by and see them.
Please, yeah.
Do they get something if they stop by?
A hug.
A hug. A hug's always good. Well, let me ask you another thing about, one thing that people always think,
And a sticker.
What?
And a sticker.
And a sticker.
Yeah.
Hey, you get a sticker for free. But people are always worried about, spending money nowadays, and they are always thinking, oh, health food stores are so expensive, and, they just want to go to, one of these cheap discount, stores. So tell them why they should come to your store.
Well, because the stuff that we sell at our store is going to be higher quality. And like I said before, $1 of preventative health care, and food certainly fits into that preventative health care, is going to actually save you in the long run on health care, costs and problems that you don't have. So if you eat and live healthy, you'll actually save money, even if you spend more money on food and nutrition.
Yeah, you spend a lot less money on medical expenses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and you take food stamps?
We do, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah. They're not called food stamps anymore. They're called EBT.
Yeah,
they're all electronic, but yes.
Yeah.
We
cool credit card. You just swipe it.
Yeah, we do.
And where do you get? You were telling me before that like Louisville has some of the largest farms that provide the city with food, fresh fruits and vegetables. So where do you get your organic fruits and vegetables?
Well, we get our produce from lots of different small farmers. I mean, I would say that we probably deal with north of 100 different local food vendors. And we get lots of produce. We also get local meat, local eggs, local dairy, and all kinds of value-added processed, food, whether that's, canned tomatoes or mustard or milled grains like flours, grits, things like that. So we have all kinds of local products. And, Kentucky is interesting because we do have a rich agricultural heritage, and we have good, rich, fertile soil, and we have a long history of tobacco farming. And so since tobacco, farming is, really waning, it was a great opportunity for the Department of Agriculture to try to incentivize a lot of these farmers to take up, vegetable and livestock production instead. So it's been a pretty successful program. A lot of people may have heard of it. It was called Kentucky Proud. And so there was a lot of tobacco settlement money that kind of went towards promoting that and getting people to get on board. So Louisville, believe it or not, is actually looked at, nationally as a model for our local food system.
Yes, that's what I was told, that there was something, though, I think it was turned down this time. It was trying to be passed by the legislator, and then they want to try to go back and do it again, but it was some kind of fundings for continuing to expand that program. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a finite amount of money, and so it is starting to run out, but I do think that if you look at the local food system from what it was, what it is now to what it was 10 years ago, or even, 15 years ago, it's totally different. So, we actually have, Louisville actually has what is essentially a local food broker. Individual buyers are going to help, but they actually make up a small percentage of food sales when you look at something like the University of Louisville or Jefferson County, public schools, or these institutional buyers that buy, hundreds of thousands of pounds of, food even a month. And so to really change the way that our local food system, to really be able to ramp it up and feed a lot of people, we really need to get a lot of those bigger buyers on board. And so we actually do have someone who is a city contractor who basically kind of goes to the farmers and helps them kind of find buyers so that they can kind of grow larger amounts of food to kind of keep it local and get some higher quality food into the school. So last year, JCPS bought 11,000 pounds of sustainably and humanely raised and processed chicken thighs for the school system, which is a huge accomplishment and created a lot of, was a big economic kind of like boon for Kentucky farmers and also for the local food economy. And that sounds like a lot, 11,000 pounds of chicken thighs. That's half of one day, like half of one lunch at JCPS.
Oh, wow.
So, that's like
poor little chickens. They go back.
Now we're back
go to sleep. Go to sleep.
But yeah, so 11,000, pounds is really just, half of the schools get one lunch. So it kind of gives you a sense of how, vast our food system is and how much further we still have to go. But but you can get lots of it at our store.
Yeah, that's good. So they're kind of sucking up the tobacco soil that the tobacco people used to, make so much money on. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's just not a lot of smokers are not as prevalent as they once were.
Josh? Josh is our technician. He's behind there puffing away. Put it out! Put it out!
You know, so there's, you know, smoking is not as common, so it's harder for tobacco farmers to make a living. So the state recognized that. And
great idea.
you know, they're trying to figure out how they can reinvent that into other types of agriculture. And you know, the tobacco industry is interesting because it's all one kind of commodity crop. So we have a lot of kind of infrastructure that was in place to kind of deal with tobacco, where you would kind of take it to a place, you know, you get it, you know, weighed, it would all get shipped into the tobacco warehouses, and so there was a process. But now we're dealing with a much more diverse agricultural food system, where you're dealing with, you know, tomatoes and livestock and, you know, corn and all these different, you know, potatoes and things that require different stuff. So, you know, we're still kind of figuring out like how we're going to deal with aggregation and distribution and kind of the bigger picture items for a food system.
Yeah. My husband was a physician, and we used to live out in western Kentucky, and sometimes we go out and buy our organics at that time, because there wasn't much, you know, from the Amish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
and we actually do a lot of work with the Amish. There's a great cooperative of organic Amish producers. It's called the Casey County Organic Cooperative. And so they're great because they kind of have one point person, but a lot of different farms that are all close to each other. So they really diversify their crop, and we get, you know, some of the best produce from them. And we actually have a CSA. I should probably explain that.
Yes,
a CSA is a community supported agriculture, and that is basically where you buy in and you get, you pay a sum of money up front, and then you are repaid by the farmer with a box of fresh in-season produce every week throughout the year. So we have a really neat CSA that we offer with our Amish farmers, and it's all organic. And unlike other CSAs, you can actually pick what your favorite foods are. And so you can put on there that, you know, you love, you know, broccoli and strawberries and peaches, but, you know, you hate onions, and so you'll never get onions. And so you kind of get a more customized box that's to your liking. And so it's pretty neat because since you're dealing with a lot of different farmers, it minimizes your risk a little bit more than just dealing with one farmer or what kind of comes in from their crop.
I remember going to their settlement, and you know, there'd be these guys standing up in their wagons with a bunch of melons in the back, and they had these huge muscles, you know, and they just I'm sure they didn't even have to go to workout, you know.
Oh yeah,
studios.
Farming is the original workout.
Yeah, really. We, you know, and that's why I think we had diets that were so much different back then, because we eat, you know, fat and butter and things like that, because everyone was out, you know, churning butter, or out in the fields working, or you know, walking everywhere, and you know, riding their horses. So you know, we still keep those recipes that we hand down generation to generation, you know, but we can't keep eating the same ways that our grandparents and our great-grandparents ate. So, you know, we have to modify them. So, I guess we should we do another commercial break?
That was it for commercials.
Oh, okay.
We only got 15 minutes left.
All right, good. Well, let me remember to give thanks to the Warehouse Stump Screen Printing. Staub Printing, who is our sponsor for Ville TV. And I also wanted to tell, you'll see it at the end, but my husband, who's a doctor, Dr. Monroy, and I wrote a book called The Pathway Home, which talks, the first chapter is all about diet and how important that is, and it covers physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing. And him being a doctor, this actually came out in '95, so it was a predictor of the mess that we were heading toward and are in now. And it talks about, you know, medicine and big business don't mix. So you know, it's on Amazon.com, The Pathway Home by Elizabeth Monroy. You might want to check it out. And is there anything any events that are coming up at your store that you want to?
We have lots of events. We always do. I don't know the specific events that are coming up right now, but if you go to our website, rainbowblossom.com, go to events, you will see a whole list of them, and we probably have 20 or 30 events that are coming up just in the next, month.
And the film, What is God? Will be on that website.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Coming to the theater near you at Rainbow Blossom. So, just again, your locations are. I know there's, because I live in Anchorage, so there's one in Middletown.
Yeah, there's one in Middletown, Springhurst.
Springhurst, that's a new one, isn't it?
It's not.
No.
It's been open since 2002, so
wow.
12 years. We have one in New Albany. We have the one on Bardstown Road in the Gardner Lane Shopping Center, and then we have our St. Matthew's store.
Okay. And so the events happen all over these different places?
Yeah, the events happen at different stores, and so sometimes we even, we'll take one event and rotate it around to the different locations.
Okay, good.
So.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to think of something else to ask you now. I feel like I've covered everything. I think the one thing that I wanted to ask you about that Carol said, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but she said you are actually, I thought you were hooking up with an alternative health care center. Maybe you don't know about that. Guess what?
Well, I had emailed her. I saw your email where you want to talk about that, and I inquired, and she said, "Oh, just our practitioner's room that we have at our Gardner."
Oh, that's
Lane,
what it was. Oh,
yeah, at our Gardner
okay.
Lane Shopping Center. So.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Well, there's a lot of them cropping up, and I want to have someone representing them next week on. And they're like centers where. Like how doctors all get together, like eye doctors and, cancer doctors. Well, this would be like, massage therapist, a Reiki master, a naturopath, or a homeopathy specialist or herbologist. And, they kind of all share, a center together. And then, I guess you almost did that by having them all together at your events, right?
Kamalita, who is the practitioner at our Gardner Lane store, has actually talked about wanting to kind of have like a little network of alternative practitioners. So she would be a great person to have on your show.
Okay.
She is actually continuing her education this week in France. I know we all feel so bad for her.
Yeah.
But when she comes back, you should hook up with her and you guys can make this happen.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
like a good plan. Kamalita.
Okay, great. Yeah, in fact, this show is going to run here until August, the end of August, and then we'll take it over to Italy. So we'll be filming for 4 to 5 weeks of it in Italy, and then we'll come back here in October, the middle of October. So you'll get to see how those crazy Italians handle their spiritual growth. The New Age movement, or whatever you want to call it, I don't like to call it New Age because I think it's the Now Age, but it's starting to come there. But they have like one health food store called Sugar Blues, and it looks like probably your health food store did in the 70s. Like just one little room, and everything's packed in really tight, and the brands are like ancient brands, they used to have all this.
Well, the EU has actually banned the import of all genetically modified foods. So they don't grow, there are no GMOs in Europe, and the products that get imported to Europe cannot have GMOs in it. So, so Europe is already one step ahead of it. So in some ways, I know in France and Spain, they call them like bio stores, like bio, like B-I-O.
Yes.
And so
Biologe, they call it, Biologe.
Yeah, and so it's basically like that's kind of what they consider to be organic, and so they are kind of these like little smaller looking, like old school kind of stores, because they don't have most of the people don't have the same concerns about the foods that they're eating over there, because the food is going to be like
food's good. It's good and it's good
the
for
food is
you.
good, so
you go to these open markets. You know, I lived by one. You know, it's like we call it a farmer's market over here. It's just a regular market over there, and people go shopping. You know, they have the fish that have been just pulled out that morning and brought over from, you know, Livorno or whatever, and then they. You know, you can get your fresh cut meat. There's no hormones in it. You know, the chickens are, you know, hanging up there dead. Those poor chickens. I just can't get over those chickens. their necks aren't cut off. They're looking at you, and then you know, fresh breads and cheeses and everything, and you buy it that day for what you're going to make, you know, that dinner. And if you go out to a restaurant, what you eat is, you know, prepared, you know, in a little tiny kitchen by the chef. It's not, you know, this huge corporation, and excuse me for saying this, but Cisco's like pulling up in the back, you know, and everything you eat is Cisco. It's Cisco that goes to every one of these chain restaurants, and you know, they call it a different name and they dress it up and they, you know, make it Italian or whatever, you know, well, most of them are Italian, or you know, rib places or cowboy places or steakhouses, but you know, they're all mass-produced, you know, foods, and that's not the way it is in Italy. They're all mama and papa's places that have been run out, you know, from most places, unless you're, you know, in, I think now in Louisville we have some now in like Nulu and downtown.
Farm to table restaurants.
Yeah. I'm just back, so I'm getting, but they do have that available to people. So
yes,
yeah.
There's quite a few restaurants and cafes that have started up that are serving a lot higher quality food. It's more of a farm to table concept.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, yeah, I noticed that a long time ago. I started, you know, living in Italy and coming back and forth, and I was just amazed at, you know, the supermarkets. When you go into these huge supermarkets and you can hardly find anything fresh. I mean, now they'll have produce and they'll have, you know, like a little organic section, but if you go down the rows and rows and rows and rows and rows, they're all processed food. And then I just saw this movie, Fed Up. Yes, and then they talked about, you know, McGovern and how he tried to control the sugar quantities that were being put into food, and then he also talked about, you know, that they needed to, you know, people were getting too fat, basically, they needed to change the diet. So they started out with all this fat-free stuff, but because the fat-free food tasted so bad, they put sugar in it. And so now you can't even tell how much sugar when you look on the labels. You can't tell, they won't list the amount of sugar, the percentage of sugar. So you're just looking at bottles and bottles and bottles of processed foods with, you know, all these chemicals. And like you said, it might not even say sugar. It'll say fructose, high fructose, or there's all kinds of chemicals that mean the same thing, right?
Sure, yeah. Glucose, fructose,
all this unpronounceable
sucrose. Yeah, I mean, if I would challenge any of you out there to go to the grocery store and just start reading your labels, and you'll just be amazed or horrified at what kind of additives are in, you know, just all of the run-of-the-mill stuff, you know, whether that's, you know, preservatives, artificial colors, artificial flavors, high fructose corn, you know, syrup, modified food starch, just all the kind of, you know, bad stuff. So we try to be like very transparent, and on our website we have our product standards that's listed, and so you can see all of the list of, and it's hundreds and hundreds of, you know, items long of things that we don't carry, or, you know, that can be carried in a cleaning product, but, you know, not a food product, or So yeah, it's pretty interesting. When you start paying attention, it makes it really hard to shop, and you start to realize that the vast majority of the grocery store, if you're trying to like really eat clean, is almost unshoppable. So you really just got to stick to the basics, the produce, the the proteins, the just bare bones items. Shop the perimeter. That's what Michael Pollan says.
So if you're feeling bad, you don't know why, if you're feeling tired and lethargic and you just don't have that vitality that you used to from eating live and healthy, vital, clean food, or if you're getting bad reports from your doctor, stop in to Rainbow Blossom, any 5 of them, and check their website too for all the events that are coming up. So, well, I just want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure, and we'll have to get you back on here and some of the other people that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to catch up with you about my movie.
All right. Well, Carol's the person to talk to.
All right.
But you can tell her.
I'm me up already.
Yeah, you can tell her I said it was okay.
Okay. You're the boss. All right. Well, I guess that's all. Bye, everybody. See you next week, 7 o'clock, same time, same place.